You've been lied to about sleep. You've been told that grinding harder and sleeping less is quite honestly the price of success. But the truth is that sleep is not a luxury. It's actually the foundation of high performance. One night of sleep deprivation increased beta amyloid buildup in the brain by over 40%. Caffeine disrupts sleep even when consumed 6 hours before bed. When we have poor sleep, it increases insulin resistance, basically making you more prone to weight gain, metabolic syndrome, and type 2 diabetes. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Own It Show. I'm your host, Justin Rothling-Schofer. And if you are new to the Own It Show, I am so glad that you're here. At the Own It Show, our biggest goal and our biggest mission is to empower, educate, and equip you to take ownership of your health so that you can realize the mission that God has on your life. Because we all know that this is just a vehicle, and the way that we live is truly the way that we can thrive at the end of the day. Because you were meant to heal, you were meant to thrive, you were meant to feel energized. We've just lived in a world that has ultimately caused us to be average. And so today we are going into episode 5. I can't believe this. Episode 5 of our big health series. And today we're diving into sleep. If you've been here over the course of our last 5 episodes, episode 1 was all about stress and looking at heart rate variability, knowing that heart rate variability is the universal, most single important metric when understanding how our body's adapting to stress and strain. From there, we went into a nutrition episode. That was episode 2, talking all about nutrition, cellular deficiencies, and knowing that our cells need nutrients. And when they don't have nutrients, we ultimately show symptoms of disease. And how do we combat that? What does that look like? And when our body doesn't have the nutrients it needs, it's a major stressor that causes HRV to drop. Then we went into episode 3, which looked at conditioning. Why do we go to conditioning? Because that is how are we utilizing oxygen in our body. And we know that our cells need oxygen. When our cells don't have oxygen, it ultimately causes HRV to drop. And lastly, we went into in episode 4, we went into strength. And how do we maintain strength long term? And why does strength matter? Because again, strength increases our body's efficiency to utilize oxygen, which ultimately, if we don't use oxygen well, will decrease heart rate variability. And so today, we're going into episode 5 being all about sleep. And if I had $1 for every single time somebody asked me, how do I sleep better? If somebody gave me $1 every time they said, how do I improve my sleep? If somebody gave me $1 every time somebody said, I fall asleep, but I can't stay asleep, what can I do? I would have a lot of dollars. And so when we come back and we take a look at this, sleep is just one of those things that is constantly out there. People are constantly giving you sleep tricks and hacks and trying to go, okay, how do we get more sleep? People are like, I'm too busy. I can't sleep any more than I currently am. I sleep 7 hours and I wake up exhausted. I sleep 9 hours. Wake up exhausted. So how can I actually fix this? And today, I hope is going to be a paradigm shift for you in realizing that sleep is not as complicated as it's been made to be. We just live in a world that is ultimately not just, I don't even know, lied's a strong word, but heavily manipulated how you think about sleep. And I want to streamline it for you today. So if you followed the last episodes as well, we're going to go through 3 parts of this. There's going to be an intention. When we talk about intention, it's all about the data that you need to look at, know, and understand. And I do a deep dive into a lot of this. Then it's going to be intervention. So what's the system? What's the protocol that you can put in place in order to improve it? And then what's the inevitable outcome, or otherwise the result? So the triple I, the intention, the intervention, and the inevitable outcome, so that you can ultimately be educated, equipped, and empowered to take ownership of your sleep so you can take ownership of your health. Because if sleep quality increases, then all of a sudden heart rate variability increases as well. So if today's episode serves you, if it's something that takes you from where you currently are to where you want to go, if it's something that you're like, my gosh, I didn't realize all of this about sleep, and it serves you, all I ask is that you share it with somebody that you love. You please share it on social media so that I can interact with you, or simply leave us a rating wherever it is that you're listening to this so that more people can gain access to this information, because that's how we reach more people, is through you. So thank you again for supporting us. Thank you for listening, and let's dive in. Because guys, you've been lied to about sleep. You've been told that grinding harder and sleeping less is quite honestly the price of success. But the truth is that sleep is not a luxury. It's not something that you just get as a simple byproduct once you've made it. It's actually the foundation of high performance. It's really the key metric that a lot of us are okay giving up without actually realizing that some very small changes could actually be the foundation of stone that we're actually looking for. And so today we're going to break down the science behind sleep, how it impacts your hormones, your recovery, your brain function, et cetera, so that you can really, truly dominate and feel like a winner across the board. And so when we think about sleep, the biggest thing that I often hear from people is I sleep for 7 hours a night. Is that how much sleep I need? Or I've done sleep studies and they say that I'm just not sleeping long enough. I'm here to tell you that it has nothing to do with sleep quantity and has everything to do with sleep quality. You sleep in 4 distinct stages. There's 4 distinct stages to sleep. There is a light sleep stage. There's a slow wave sleep stage. There's a REM sleep stage, and there's a wake cycle. And those 4 sleep stages ultimately take approximately 90 minutes for any single person to go through. Yes, plus or minus 15 or 20 minutes on either side, but approximately 90 minutes for any single one person to get through all 4 sleep stages. The difference between a high quality sleeper and a poor quality sleeper is how much time is spent in those middle 2 phases, deep or slow wave sleep and REM sleep. So when we think about that, the garnering overarching time or percentage that needs to be spent is somewhere between 38 and 50% of your total sleep time. So if I was sleeping for 8 hours, that would mean that I would want somewhere between 38 and 50% of those total 8 hours in those middle 2 zones of slow wave and REM sleep. If we break that down and we start to look at it, 38% of 8 hours is somewhere between 3 hours, let's call it, and somewhere between 3 hours and 4 hours is where we would want to be when we start to look at that. And how do we measure that? Whoop measures it, Aura measures it, your Garmin can measure it, your Sleep 8 mattress can measure it. Any of these tools can be used, but this is why tracking is so important. And when we come back to it, we remember that your body is a miracle. It's made up of 30 trillion cells, and those cells need 4 things. They need oxygen, which we went over in the conditioning and strength episode. It needs nutrients, which we went over in the nutrition episode. And it needs the ability to remove toxins and to regenerate. And the body repairs and regenerates during those middle 2 sleep stages. And this is why it's so important. So when sleep quality increases, so does the sleep quality, or so does the ability to remove toxins. And so what that system is called is it's actually called the glymphatic system. And so it's the brain's nighttime detox system, theoretically. And so the glymphatic system is the brain's waste removal process, clearing out toxins and metabolic byproducts, including things like beta amyloid, which is heavily linked to Alzheimer's disease. And the crazy part about the glymphatic system is the glymphatic system is 10 times more active than it is during deep sleep than it is when we're awake. And even if you go back to it, it's not just 10 times more active, it's 98%, doing 98% of its work during that sleep stage as well. And so when you cut your sleep quality short, your brain gets kind of clogged up with waste, leading to cognitive decline, brain fog, and ultimately long-term neurodegeneration that has a big impact on us. And so that's why when I'm talking about the things that your cells need, that's why I did these episodes on this. Because when your HRV drops, you can be like, hey, was it that the oxygen efficiency is going down? Is it that I'm nutrient depleted? Or is it that I'm losing the ability to remove toxins and waste from my body? Because you go back to a 2019 study, and what it found was that just 1 night of sleep deprivation increased beta amyloid buildup in the brain by over 40%. And so think about this with your car. If you are driving around, and I'm obviously born and raised in Canada, so in Edmonton, when it snows, they throw down all of this salt. And if you were driving your car and you got all of this salt all over your car because you were driving and it was like a medium warm day, kind of like 32 degrees Fahrenheit, so just barely freezing, it's kind of slushy, you're going to have all this crap on your car. Well, what my dad would do is the guy would literally wash the car at least once a week, getting all of that, what he called crap and corruption off of the car. But now imagine that he goes out of town and he doesn't wash the car for 2, 3, 4 weeks. Well, that buildup starts to just get caked on and get caked on and get caked on and get caked on, and it just starts to build. Well, the same thing happens with our brain. And so that's why that study from 2019, finding that just one night of sleep deprivation increased beta amyloid buildup in the brain, the reason that becomes critical is we start to do that night after night after night after night. It starts to become really negative, and we start to have this symptom that we say, hey, it's like brain fog, or hey, I don't have the energy throughout the day. And we start to take more caffeine. We start to take more stimulants. We start to try to take melatonin at night to get deeper sleep. And so what actually ends up happening, and when you actually start doing this, what you're doing is you're just building up more of this beta amyloid that is actually holding you back from getting higher quality sleeps. And the HRV is going to continue to decrease. And you're like, why is it decreasing? I don't know what's going on. I'm getting 7 hours of sleep a night, but your quality is so low. And so the piece about this that we have to come back to is like, I even want to shift over into that concept of caffeine, because when people stop sleeping well, and they stopped getting into these stages of sleep, they're like, hey, you know what? I'm going to just have a glass of wine to kind of wind down at night, maybe a pop of melatonin, and then I'm going to have caffeine first thing in the morning. Well, here's what actually ends up happening. Alcohol reduces REM sleep, which is a quality sleep stage that we need to ultimately step into, and it impairs memory consolidation, emotional processing, and ultimately cognitive performance. It also increases the buildup of beta amyloid. Well, now all of a sudden we go into that 2020 study that found that even a single drink a night, one drink, one glass of wine, one beer, one cocktail, even one drink a night reduces sleep by up to 40 minutes. Deep sleep. So again, a quality sleep stage. And we know what happens during deep sleep is when the glymphatic system is active. So we start to see how these things start to overlap and interact. And so when we have alcohol and we see this decrease in sleep quality, that's why we have the heart rate variability suppression. It means that there's an increased stressor on the body because it's not getting rid of the toxins that the cells have been clearing out all day long, and it starts to build up. So now let's flip it to the other side. So now you've gone to bed, you've fallen asleep, now you wake up in the morning, you're exhausted. Now what you're going to go do and get caffeine. Well, here's the thing. Caffeine is an adenosine blocker. Adenosine is a neurotransmitter that makes you feel sleepy. And so caffeine temporarily blocks it, but does not remove it. So when the caffeine wears off, the adenosine crash is even worse, and you might start to feel this. And so think about this for a second. Is if caffeine has a half-life in our body of about 6 to 8 hours, meaning that even a 2 p.m. coffee, actually, I'm going to give you a better time. I can do easier math. If you have coffee at noon, all of a sudden that means that somewhere between 6 and 8 p.m., you still have 100 milligrams of caffeine in your body, because a single cup of coffee has about 200 milligrams of caffeine. And so at 6 to 8 p.m., you still have 100 milligrams active. Then all of a sudden we go 6 to 8 hours from there, somewhere between 2 and 4 a.m. You still have 50 milligrams active. And so because you've got this blocker of adenosine in the neurotransmitters that don't actually allow melatonin to bind to get you into the deep states of sleep, you're now not truly getting into the states of sleep, which again, increase beta amyloid, and that you've also added the alcohol. You can start to see how these things start to compound. And even the study back in the Journal of Clinical Sleep Medicine, it was titled Caffeine Disrupts Sleep Even When Consumed 6 hours Before Bed. What it actually showed was that it reduced total deep sleep time by at least 1 hour. So let's even go to the math, right? If you're sleeping for 8 hours, somewhere between 38 and 50% in deep in REM sleep, which is what we need, that means you're getting somewhere between 3 to 4 hours of quality sleep. Let's have a cup of coffee 6 hours before bed, or let's have caffeine intake a couple times throughout the day, and let's take an hour off of that. That's immediately going to drop your quality sleep time, even if you did everything else right, somewhere between 18 and 30%. That's what you're going to be at, 18 and 30%. Well, we know that's less than 38. So all of a sudden we're like, man, I can't get my sleep quality up. Well, let's take a look at what we're doing. And that is why alcohol and caffeine have such a negative impact on this. And we know that sleep's impact on HRV and recovery is super critical because deep sleep improves HRV. Why? It gets rid of the toxins. It increases the glymphatic system, while sleep deprivation actually lowers heart rate variability, signaling more stress on the nervous system. Because again, the beta amyloid builds up. You're not getting into the activation of the glymphatic system. You're not getting what the body actually needs. And so what the studies have shown is that people who sleep less than 6 hours per night, and thus less than 38% sleep quality, have a lower heart rate variability, putting them in a chronically stressed state, even without knowing or understanding why. And so that is the big piece that we start to have to understand that actually goes on. The last thing I want to talk about when we think about circadian rhythm and cortisol melatonin cycles is that sleep has a major impact to how we eat, because ghrelin is what we call the hunger hormone. It basically says, I call it the ghrelin gremlin. And the ghrelin gremlin is that big guy that comes in and goes, hey, you need to get food into your body because I need something to satiate me. And so the ghrelin gremlin is the hunger hormone, and it spikes when you don't get enough quality sleep, making you crave sugar and processed foods, because ghrelin signals to the brain, hey, I don't have sugar. Hey, I'm struggling. Hey, I'm struggling to stay awake. And now it makes you start to crave something. Nobody has ever stayed up an extra hour, an extra 2 hours at night and said, oh, you know what? I need a salad. Oh, you know what? I need a piece of fruit. No, what they say is, oh, you know what? You need to go get those chips over there. You need some ice cream. You need to get a bite of that candy. That's why we snack on those things, because the ghrelin gremlin tells us that we need to spike that. Well, what happens? Now we've eaten some food closer to bedtime, so now we're not going to get into the deeper states of sleep. Now we've ultimately eaten something that's artificially processed. Our body's not going to know how to digest it. It's going to have chemicals that are now going to cause more toxicity within the cells that they have to go through, because we're not getting into that deep state of sleep. The glymphatic system's not going to be activated, so we're going to have more toxins that continue to stay built up. Because all of a sudden we've eaten that, we're actually not getting the nutrition we need, so our cellular deficiencies are going to start to increase. By all of a sudden doing this, we're going to start to see that we didn't get into deep states of sleep, so that our oxygen efficiency is suppressed, and all of a sudden it is this negative downhill spiral that causes HRV to deplete. And we're just like, man, all I did was have a snack last night, stay up a little bit later than normal. Why do I feel this way? Not only does ghrelin start to spike when you don't get enough deep sleep, but leptin, which is your satiety hormone, makes you feel satisfied. It decreases with quality sleep deprivation, making it harder to feel full. So it's like a double whammy. And there was a study back in 2022 in the Journal of Internal Journal of Internal Medicine. And what it found was that in just 1 week of sleep restriction, basically saying anything less than 5 hours per night, the participants increased calorical intake by 300 to 500 calories a day, leading to excessive fat gain over time. Just 1 week of sleep restriction, 5 hours or less, it increased calorical intake daily by 300 to 500 calories. That's a big deal. And they're things not because they tried to eat more. It's just simply because their satiety hormone was down, so they probably had bigger portion sizes. And then because the ghrelin gremlin was more prevalent, They just started to eat more often. And so these are things that are really, really critical, really, really important. And lastly, when we have poor sleep, it increases insulin resistance, basically making you more prone to weight gain, metabolic syndrome, and type 2 diabetes. And so remember when I said so many people are like, okay, how do I treat the issue? So how do I treat metabolic syndrome? How do I treat type 2 diabetes? How do I treat Alzheimer's? I don't want to ask how do you treat it. I want to know why is it happening? And why it's happening can come back to those 4 major components: low heart rate variability, low sleep quality, low oxygen efficiency, and ultimately high cellular deficiency. Because these things are all integrated into how our cells operate, how our cells function. And so when we see all of this data, when we see all of this information, what does it mean? There's one thing that is the most important thing: sleep quality. What percentage of your total sleep time is spent in slow wave or deep and REM sleep? 38 to 50%. That is the single most important metric that you need to look at, that you need to understand, that you need to know when it comes to sleep. Not sleep score, not sleep time, quality of sleep. Percentage spent in slow wave, deep, and REM sleep. So now when we move into, okay, what's the intervention? What does this look like? There's some very specific things that we can do. Number 1 is a consistent sleep and wake time. Waking up and going to bed approximately the same time. If it's Monday, if it's Wednesday, if it's Thursday, if it's Saturday, if it's Sunday, if it's September, if it's December, if it's June, going to bed and waking up approximately the same time. So if you wake up at 6 a.m., you're waking up sometime between 5:45 and 6:15 every single day. If you're going to bed at 9 p.m., you're going to bed somewhere between 9 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. That is how we can increase the hormonal release of cortisol and melatonin, which ultimately is the interaction system to create your circadian rhythm. It's the easiest, simplest, least complex thing: a consistent sleep and wake time. The second thing you can do is what I call the 3-2-1 rule. 3 hours before bed. So let's take this person who's going to go to bed. Let's use a better number. Let's say they go to bed at 10 p.m. every single night. And that's the consistent sleep time. 3-2-1 rule means that 3 hours before bed, no more food. Why? Because we know that there's 400 times more melatonin produced in the gut than is produced by the pineal gland in the brain. We know that any type of food that comes into the body has to digest, and thus is a stressor, thus is going to decrease our sleep quality over the course of the night, which we know is going to have an impact on getting into activating the glymphatic system, et cetera, et cetera. 2 hours before bed, no more work. Mean no more heavy decision making. It's probably not a good time to talk about where the kids are going to school, the finances. Stop emailing your employees. Stop texting your employees. Stop looking at the schedule for tomorrow. You put a boundary up. So for this person to go to bed at 10, at 7 p.m., no more food, no more meals, no more snacks. 8 p.m., no more work, no more texting, no more emailing, no more schedule planning. And then 1 hour before bed, no more blue light. Blue light can come from LED lights around you. Blue lights can come from TVs, iPads, cell phones, tablets, computers. And if you do have to be on after the sun sets, somewhere between when that 1 hour rule is up, use blue light blockers. And if you're going to use blue light blockers, you can go to dreamrecovery.io, dreamrecovery.io. They've got 2 really stylish pairs of blue light blockers, and use the code OWNIT. I think they give you a great discount, but they're just high quality products, as well as using the mouth tape that they have, as well as using the nasal strips they have. They've got sleep kits on there that you can do, EMF blocking, bags for different things. But that is the biggest one. Dreamrecovery.io is a great place to go. But 3 hours before bed, no more food. 2 hours before bed, no more work. 1 hour before bed, no more blue light exposure. And this is a very simple framework that you can start to use. The third thing you can do is what I call the AM, PM immediate 4. AM, PM immediate 4. So what you would do in that last hour, because I always get, okay, last hour before bed, no blue light, what do I do? You focus on the PM immediate 4. That means temperature. We want cool temperature. So does that mean we have a cool shower? Does that mean we jump into a cold plunge? Does that mean we turn the air conditioning on? Does that mean we get cool clothes on? What does that mean? But cool body temperature. Second thing is we want down-regulating breaths. Down-regulating breaths. So that could be a box breath. In for 3, hold for 3, out for 3, hold for 3. In for 4, hold for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. Any continuous count like that. Or you could do an inverse mountain breath, which would be an inhale breath for 3 through the nose, exhale breath for 6 out the mouth. Either one of those down-regulating breaths is great to utilize within that last hour. The other thing, again, PM immediate 4, is light. You want dim lights in that last hour. That means get rid of all the LED lights. It means use soft lights in your house, up lights, so preferably using lamps, not overhead lights. It could be using candles, any of these types of things. But these are what is going to really help you, really help you get ready for bed and optimize melatonin release and suppress cortisol. And then the last thing is less than 20% of your total water intake per day. So remember, it's going back to how much water do you need in a day? Half your body weight in ounces. I'm a 200-pound male. Thus, I need 100 ounces of water a day. Thus, I would take in less than 20 ounces, which is 20% of my total water intake. I would take in less than 20 ounces of water after 5 p.m. Those are that's the PM immediate 4. The AM on the other side, again, how do we optimize for circadian rhythm to get into the deepest quality sleep, is the AM immediate 4, which is the complete opposite. Temperature, you want heat exposure. Get into the sauna, get into the steam room, get into a hot shower, get into the hot tub, get a workout in so it raises your body temperature immediately within the first hour of waking up. The second thing is you want bright lights. Turn on all the lights around you. See the sunrise come up. Whatever it is, get bright lights on your eyes. It's going to increase cortisol production, maximize that cortisol production. You want 20 ounces of cool water with electrolytes. Could be Element, could be ATH, could be Protect, could be Redmond Relight, could be just a trace mineral with some sea salt. I love Baja sea salt. So those are some great ways in order to get electrolytes into 20 ounces of water first thing upon waking up. And then lastly, up-regulating breaths. And I've talked about this before, but it's 2 inhale breaths through the nose, audible exhale through the mouth. And you want 20 of those quick. It's like this, 20 of those breaths. And then you're going to hold your breath for as long as you can. Then you're going to go back into 20 breaths, hold, 20 breaths, hold. Those 3 cycles, again, optimizes cortisol production and optimizes oxygenation of the cells. This is the way that you can, again, set yourself up for the best night sleep possible. And then the last tool that I'll give you, again, I kind of talked about it a little bit, is mouth taping. And mouth taping is incredible because so many of us breathe in and out through our mouth at night. Not only does it cause us to snore, but it also causes us to not be able to oxygenate the body as well. And so if we're not oxygenating the body as well, thus we're not getting into as many deep sleep stages. Thus we're not getting the toxicity release we need. And so 2 out of the 4 things that our body needs, oxygenation and sleep quality, don't happen. So HRV drops. These are the things that I need you to know. And you start to go back to this and you're like, my gosh, when I have oxygen, when I have nutrients, when I have the ability to remove toxins, my body is under low stress and thus my body functions well. It heals. Your body was built to heal. You were built to heal. And these are why I want you to come across. And this is why the data of measuring sleep quality is so critical. That's why this series, it's a 6-part series, but it's 3 pieces of data. It's oxygen through VO2 max, it's nutrition quality through cellular deficiencies, and it's sleep quality, ability to remove toxins through sleep quality is going to help you with the 4th metric, which is the universal metric, which is heart rate variability. This is how we heal our body. This is how we give ourselves the easiest, most simplest framework to actually take ownership of our health. And when we do those interventions that I just spoke about, when we implement those interventions, a consistent sleep and wake time, let's just call this person Jack. And Jack is going to bed at 10 p.m. He's implementing the 3-2-1 rule. 3 hours before bed, 7 p.m., no more food. 2 hours before bed, no more. So at 8 p.m., no more scheduling, processing, decision-making, or any work. 1 hour before bed at 9 p.m., he eliminates all blue light. Maybe he throws his blue light blockers on if he's going to continue to watch a show with his wife. Within that last hour, he's going to make sure that he's doing his breath work. He's getting in a cool environment. He's turning on dim lights, and he's getting a very less than 20% of his water intake in. He's going to throw mouth tape on as he goes to bed, and he's going to fall asleep, getting rid of putting his phone in airplane mode or putting it in his EMF blocking bag. He's going to have a quiet sleep environment. And all of a sudden, when he wakes up in the morning, he's going to do his activating breath work. He's going to get his 20 ounces of water with electrolytes. He's going to get the bright lights flipped on around him or see the sunrise. And he's going to get into the sauna, the steam room, or do some form of exercise to get the heat going. This is how very quickly, literally over the course of a week, if you're measuring sleep quality, you will see an increase in sleep quality, but also an increase in HRV. It is impossible not to. I guarantee you, you go through this intervention and you put this system and protocol in place, you will see an increase in sleep quality, and you go from whatever you are at, 20%, 15%, 8%, 30% sleep quality to 38 to 50, guaranteed, if you start to implement this. And on nights where your sleep quality improves, watch heart rate variability improve. Because at the end of the day, the outcome that you're looking for, better sleep, increased HRV, increased mental focus, increased energy, decreased hunger pains throughout the day, increase in your consistency with diet and exercise, decreased weight, whatever these things are that you're looking for, the inevitable outcomes, the results that you're looking for, live on the other side of doing things differently. Live on the other side of the intervention I just spoke about. But it's up to you if we're wanting to implement. It's up to you if you want to put these into place. It's up to you if you want to make these changes. And when you have the data does not lie. I went through all of these different studies. I went through all of these different metrics. I kind of brought it all together as to, in the most simplest form, as to why this matters. And when you have the data and you now have the intervention, the very simple system, the very simple protocol for you to take action and activate on, you now get the inevitable outcome as a consequence. And I just love that. Every single time I say it, it gives me goosebumps. The way we were designed, the way the good Lord made us, is if we live differently, if we live intentionally, all of a sudden, the consequence is the outcome we're looking for in the first place. More energy, more mental focus, more mental clarity, an increase in sleep quality, waking up feeling refreshed. It's so amazing. I had a bunch of clients here this morning, 10 of them. We were doing a big testimonial project. This year, we have a goal to tell 150 stories of thousands of clients that have come through, but 150 we're going to focus on and really highlight. And there was one that came in. We do this with everyone. So they're all starting their story with, "Hi, my name is Joe, and Own It did X." And this person came in and said, "Hey, my name is Ryan, and Own It redeemed my sleep." And this guy was somebody who just wanted to sleep deeply. He was doing melatonin. He would have a glass of wine at night. He would have coffee first thing in the morning. He went and bought a $5,000 mattress. He went and bought the sound machine. He went and had all the CBD drops. He tried everything the world had to offer, but yet just still hadn't done the proper appropriate intervention and system and protocol for him that helped him live different, that get him the results he wanted. When he came to us, he had a 14% sleep quality. He had been diagnosed with sleep apnea. He was wearing a CPAP, and all of a sudden he started to implement these things. He started to do these things 2, 3, 4, 5 months later. Today, Ryan's sleep quality is at 54%. It's one of the highest I've ever seen. His HRV went from 45 to now he's in the hundreds, 103, 104. He wasn't getting good sleep quality, and the sleep apnea that he was using a CPAP machine, taking it everywhere, all over the road as he traveled. He went back, he did another sleep study. His sleep apnea is gone. He no longer uses a CPAP. These are the things, these are the intentional interventions that we get, and now we have the data to validate it along with the subjective results and the outcomes that you get to experience on a day-to-day basis. This is what's waiting for you. This is what's available for you if you're willing to live differently, because your body is extremely simple. Your body needs 3 things: oxygen, nutrients, and the ability to remove toxins and regenerate. The universal metric in which we can ultimately understand if that's happening well or not is heart rate variability. And each one of those things, each one of those things, the ability to regenerate, remove toxins, oxygen, and nutrients, all have a unique language, which is why we've gone over them in each one of these podcast episodes over the last 5 weeks. This is the power that you have. This is the power I want to give you. This is the power that I want you to feel. That, my gosh, for the first time, I know the data that matters. It's extremely simple. There's one piece of data for each one of those pieces. Giving you the intervention, my gosh, there's a system and a protocol that's so easy, that's so simple for me to implement for myself. And now you just have to go do it. And the inevitable outcome is waiting for you. The inevitable outcome is waiting for you. Somebody needs to hear this today. You were built to heal. You were built to thrive. You were created to do something great. But the world has taught you how to be average, how to be mediocre, how to accept normal, how to accept dysfunction as normal. And today, we take a stand to make it stop. And that's what Own It's all about. And so when we come back next week, we're going to dive into how do we put this all together? How do we put this all together in habits and consistency? Because the biggest thing that I hear from people is, cool, I've got this. Now, how do I be consistent with it? And we're going to help you do that. We're going to help you put it into play where your habits and your consistency all wrap this stuff together so that you can now understand that when I have everything I need, my HRV is high, my VO2 max is high, my sleep quality is high, and my cellular deficiencies are low, the data is correlating to the right things. My body is healing. I'm feeling more energetic. I'm losing weight. The autoimmune issue that I had is all of a sudden disappearing. The chronic illness that I had is all of a sudden in remission. Infertility that I suffered from is all of a sudden no longer there. And I've got a pregnancy going on and I've got kids happening. What you desire, what is on your heart is available to you. What God has put on your heart, what you truly want is available to you. You were built to thrive. You were built to heal. We just need you to live differently. So that's everything on sleep. And if this served you, all I ask is that you go make a comment, share it with someone you love, give us a rating so that we can reach more people, and make sure that you come back next week as we dive into habits and consistency so that you can make this a lifestyle for you. We know success is different, so own your different, and we'll see you guys next week.